As I mentioned, the dust has finally settled. Lysimachus is in control in the north, Kingdom of Epirus in the west, Seleucid's control of Asia, and Ptolemy is in control of Egypt. Demetrius was a god in his lifetime. People thought that he was the god Dionysus. Plutarch compares him to Mark Antony, and there's a lot of good reasons for this. Both of their lucks would run out before they could even become as great as they were supposed to be. In 288 BCE, Demetrius was totally forsaken by his troops on the field of the battle, and he surrendered to Seleucus. Seleucus would let him live in the court in Babylon. However, he died as a drunken decadent not long after this. There are many tragedies and plays and operas dedicated to his life. Which brings us to the next chapter of this story, Pyrrhus of Epirus. A direct descendant from Alexander's dynasty, he would do what Alexander's uncle tried to do and go and invade Italy once and for all. However, even though he kind of did win the war against Rome, it was called a Pyrrhic victory, named after him, which means he sort of wasted a lot of resources on this battle to the point where it's almost as if Rome actually won. But as a result of these wars, Pyrrhus would take control of Syracuse in Sicily, a very rich kingdom since the time of Dion and Dionysus during the time of Plato. This was a strategic point in the Mediterranean world to control. Seleucus was now calling himself the King of Kings. Seleucus nominated his son Antiochus I as co-ruler and viceroy of the eastern provinces in 292, the vast extent of the empire seeming to require a double government. Royal marriages were put in place. The alliance between Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus would start to fall apart. Eventually, Lysimachus ruled Macedonia, Thrace, and Asia Minor. The unpopularity of Lysimachus after the murder of Agathocles gave Seleucus an opportunity to remove his last rival. It was down to 3 now: Ptolemy, Seleucus, and Lysimachus. And it all comes down to the year 281 BCE. In a true Game of Thrones style, Ptolemy Caranus would be the breakout superstar of this story. This is where shit gets crazy. Ptolemy Caranus, whose name means thunderbolt, known to be impatient and a destructive character. He was the eldest son of Ptolemy Soter, the king of Egypt, born around 319 BCE. He was in line to be the next king of Egypt and king of the Ptolemies. However, because of his destructive character, Ptolemy chose the second son, Ptolemy Philadelphus, to be the heir of the throne. Because of this, Ptolemy Caranus angrily left the kingdom and went to Seleucus. Following his departure from Egypt, Ptolemy Caranus went to the court of Lysimachus, who was ruling in Macedon and Thrace and Asia Minor. Lysimachus's court was divided on the question of if they should support Caranus or not. On one hand, Lysimachus himself was married to Ptolemy II's sister, Arsinoe II. On the other hand, Lysimachus's heir, Agathocles, was married to Caranus's full sister, Lysandra. Lysimachus ultimately chose to support Ptolemy II and sealed that decision at some point between 284 and 281 by marrying his daughter Arsinoe to Ptolemy II. This is where things get crazy. The course of events of how this played out is very unclear, and it's almost going to sound unbelievable, but Ptolemy Caranus by himself was able to carry out the murder of Agathocles, which led to Seleucus invading Lysimachus's territory and then defeating Lysimachus, which brings us to only 2 people left in all of the Diadochi, Seleucus and Ptolemy. And Ptolemy's son then murdered Seleucus behind his back because he thought he had his support. Caranus was placed in the court of Seleucus following his help against Lysimachus, but seeing the opportunity to gain, Ptolemy Caranus was able to kill Seleucus and become the king of Macedonia. So within 1 year, the year 281 BCE, both Lysimachus and Seleucus are now dead, and Ptolemy the Savior, Ptolemy Soter, is the last standing general, the last king of all the Diadochi. He's kind of the winner of this Game of Thrones, but obviously it's not over yet. There's still this tension between son and father, and so Ptolemy Caranus was the king of Macedon for 2 years, from 281 to 279. And in January of 279, a group of Gauls, led by Bulgius, invaded Macedonia from the north. And Ptolemy Caranus was killed in this invasion. And that was the end of this sporadic and almost unbelievable turn of events in the Diadochi. Meleager was the brother of Ptolemy Caranus, also being the son of Ptolemy Soter, and he would rule Macedonia for only 2 months before Cassander's son, Antipater, would take back Macedonia from the Ptolemies, when it just looked like it was about to be a world Ptolemaic empire. Cassander's son got it back. And that is the end of the Ptolemies in Macedonia.